All right, folks, we're going to try this. I'm like recording this for the third time to see if I can get it right and try not to bounce on the table and make everybody nauseous. Okay, here's how this works. What I'm going to do, we talked about using fonts and typography in your billboard designs. And obviously, there is one way you can do it. You can hand draw the fonts. That's really fussy. When I was in school, what you would do is go get what's called press type. I don't even know if you can find that anymore in an art supply store. I'm going to guarantee there's a limit as to what fonts are available. So I'm not going to press you on that one. What you can do, though, is essentially print out to a sheet of acetate or convert to digital processes. And so what I'm going to do is show you how to bring that image. You guys know how to use your camera on your cell phone. I didn't use a scanner. I did it a cheap way with my cell phone. And so I'm going to start there, figuring that's where you're going to start. All right. So watch my screen, and that's going to help you figure out how to at least clean up your images to submit them in Blackboard. If not, turn an analog image into a really cool digital one. Here we go. Share my screen. All right, this is a really bad photograph, not so bad actually, of my bad design billboard. And you'll notice there's some bending here. It's not the board itself, it's actually the lens of the camera. So we're going to start with that problem. I'm going to select this rectangular selection tool here. I'm going to draw a rectangle around. Something's not right. There we go. Just draw a rectangle around. And I'm going to crop it a little closer so I can see the bends more than anything else. So I'm going to image and just click on the word crop. There are keystroke commands. I could use Control P, but when I teach this stuff, I don't use keystroke commands because nobody knows what I'm doing unless I tell them. You pull down, you can see it. Oh, and in a Windows platform, anytime you see an underline, that's the letter you use, and you just hold the Control key and hit that letter, and that's the command. Now, to get rid of some of this lens bend, and tassis is what we call it, we're going to go up under Filter, and there's a lens correction. It's really awesome. I played with this a minute ago. So click on lens correction, and it blows the thing up so you can see what you're doing. And it already loaded that this is a Samsung camera. It just needs to know which one I'm using. I'm on an S9, and the lens model, I'm guessing at what lens model it is. But I'm going to guess the rear camera S9. Okay, and then I hit OK. And it seems to take about half of it out. And I found if I ran it a second time, that means just filter and hit lens correction again, it seems to take most of it out. All right. So we'll stop there. We're pretty close. And then there's a second technique I use to get rid of the rest of this. Go under the selection, still the full image. Go under transform and use distort is fine. And then I can pull the corners to fit the corners. And I'm probably cropping just a little bit off the image, but not much. And for our purposes, that's just fine. When I get to what I want here, this thing won't do anything else until you hit the enter key. And now it's happy. So that's the first problem solved. Now, the second problem is the contrast in my camera caught this, every little brush stroke in this background. Obviously, I didn't want that. So I'm going to cheat on that. I don't want to kill the contrast because it muddies up everything else. The fourth tool down in the left-handed toolbox is called a magic wand. Click on it, set the tolerance at 30, 35, and just click somewhere in that flat field you want. go. And it gives me this almost everything, and that's good enough for what I want. There's a little spot here I'm going to clean up just to show you how. If you come down here and click on this little ellipse within a box, it turns on the mask mode. This is a way of actually hand painting your selection, and not every photo editor has this, but Photoshop does. And so I'm just going to clean that edge up a tiny bit. That's the only one that turns out really funky. Turn that back off. And then what I have found works is go under filter and just blur this thing using the average blur. And it gets rid of 90% of the brush strokes. And that's what I need. I don't need it to be perfectly flat. Just get rid of some of the annoyance. And we can undo the deselect. And now we're working with a clean image. So this is how you would get to that place where, wow, now Chuck's going to think I really knew what I was doing. Look how clean this is. None of the garbage. Can't see my shadow. There aren't fingerprints or those little perforation things from my pad. All looks very, very nice. This is how you submit it in Blackboard. All right. Next step is fonts. Now, here's what I'm going to show you. Click on the T down here, and that's the type tool. You just click anywhere in the image for the moment, and it gives you this box. One guess what it's going to say. Grow thistles! Exclamation mark. And I have to fix it, so I don't want the capitalized thistle. So I'll come back here and select that and change it to a regular T. And then I have this wonderful thing. Now, if you look over to the right side, the layers menu is floating open here. It creates a text layer that is separate from the drawing. And that's because the text is a spline-based or curve-based form rather than a rasterized bitmap kind of image that's pixel by pixel. So what you're seeing there is it won't merge those two unless you flatten this to a rasterized image and blend it. Now, none of that matters right at this moment, but you'll see why in a minute. That's the font I have. Now, the biggest font they give me is 72 points, which is actually a pretty large font. It's about this big. Except that we're working on a billboard that's 6 feet high and 12 feet wide. So what we're going to do is dumb this down so that I can use a bigger font on it and get the scaling I want. I'm not going to lose any resolution by doing what I'm going to do. I'm just going to change some things for a minute. So I can come over here and where it says, deselect for a minute. All right. Go under image resolution, image size. Click on size. It gives me this pop-up window. Now, if I turn on the resample, it's going to recalculate everything I do every time. I want to turn that off so it doesn't throw any pixels away. I'm just going to change the width to 12. And it comes out to just like 6. Look at 6 by 12. Oh, Chuck, you did it right. And it's at now 318 pixels per inch instead of 72. Hit OK. Oh, by the way, how many pixels per inch should you have for resolution? Typically in commercial work, it's about 300 anyway. Okay. So we've got this very nice image, and now it scaled down the font to 16 and some change. But if I select this, I can kick it up to 72, and it's really obnoxiously large. All right. And I'm going to move that just so we can see it. Okay. Come back to that. Now, what I can do are a number of things. I can change the font as long as I'm in that layer. As I mouse over, it'll change the font so I can see what font I'm using and which one seems to work well for the thing I'm trying to make, right? Now, if you're new to all this, you probably wanted to go through every single one. Go right ahead, knock yourself out. That one was a little weird right there. Ooh, chiller. Yeah, I don't want to be that scary, right? But there's a whole host of different fonts. For a billboard, you probably don't want a serif font. You probably want sans serif. Just saying. Now, there might be reasons why you want the other, but for the most part, you want something that's going to do that. And so far, I think I like the Franklin Gothic. That looks like it's bold, isn't it? Strong. Go to heavy is even more obnoxious. We'll use that. It's really nasty. There you go. All right. So we've blown it up to a large font, kind of bold. Here's what else you can do. I can copy this. And I can start pasting the whole thing. And if I decide something's wrong here, I can fix it by just selecting. Right, boom, boom. And it's starting to look like a really obnoxious billboard that'll annoy the neighbors, which of course was our goal, right? Now, these things are even in this really hard to read because, I put a complementary color on top of it. So I got orange over blue. That hurts the eyes a little. And their value is very close. So it's kind of hard to read. So what we're going to do in Photoshop is apply a layer style. I like to use outer glow. And the reason we do that is outer glow simply puts an outline around the thing. Yeah. All right. So we can control some of that. We can control the color it's using. And I typically just use black. The spread I've got set on this one to 0 because I don't want an overly aggressive one. But I've got the opacity turned down because that just looks too harsh. And it doesn't do what I want it to do, right? So we'll turn it down to I just want it to be readable. Get a little edge definition, right? There you go. That's all I really want to accomplish there. Hit OK, and it keeps that function. You'll see it has a little effects window, and I got an extra text layer here that came up by accident. Now, we can also play with the way it overlays. So I can do dark, and I can start scrolling through some of this stuff. Look at it. It can be broken. It can be creepy. Oh, that's nice. That's obnoxious. That's weird. That's extremely ugly. And you can see what each one of these does. Ooh, that's just plain creepy. It's tempting. Terribly subliminal. You're a sick man, Charles. We'll go with that just because it's so bad. It's worth laughing at. I did do a couple other examples of this. Here's a different one with a different font. You see why the serif font is like it's hard. It's easy to read on a screen at that scale, but it's really hard to read on a billboard. All right. So now what we're going to do is come back to our first image, or image that we're working on here. And we're going to save it. File, save as, because I don't want to overwrite the original. Billboard, final, because final 1 and 2 are there. That saves the layering function. Now, when you turn it in, I can't read that. I have to open it up in Photoshop to read that stuff. So hit save as. It wants me to let it save first. Save as. And go to my computer. And I'm going to save this as a JPEG file for my assignment purposes. JPEG is a compressed file. It does lose some data and some clarity, but not a lot. And so if we're just looking at it on the screen, it works great. If you were going to production, do not do this. Nobody wants a JPEG for production. All right. And there's our file. Okay. So there's the explanation of how to digitize your work, clean it up, and add font if you needed to. Questions? That's what class is for. We'll see you there.